tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So this past weekend on Sunday, I was up at Abhayagiri Buddhist Monastery, which is in Ukiah. It's about an hour and a half north of where I live here in Sonoma County. And it is, it's one of the only monasteries in the Ajahn Chah tradition, the Forest Sangha tradition in North America. There are centers in Australia and the founding centers in, besides the home temple in Thailand, Wat Pah Nanachat, and the other Ajahn Chah centers there, Wat Pah Pong. There's Amaravati Monastery in the UK, and Chithurst House there, or Chittaviveka Monastery. And Abhayagiri, which translates as a fearless mountain, is near here, and it's a blessing to be nearby. The longtime co-abbots of Abhayagiri, Ajahn Pasanno and Ajahn Amaro, were both there this weekend. Ajahn Amaro was called back to England some years back to be the abbot of Amaravati, and Ajahn Pasanno has been the main abbot here. And this was the holiday or the celebration known as the Katina, which is the almsgiving celebration. And it is it celebrates the end of the Rains Retreat, which ended a week ago, the holiday of Pavarana, closing the 3-month Rains Retreat. And so the Katina is one of the most joyful celebrations in the Buddhist year, and it's really somebody said, "Oh, this is like Buddhist Thanksgiving." The holiday of Thanksgiving is now a little tainted for some of us in the West, in America, particularly here. So I don't know. I don't. It's not Buddhist Thanksgiving. It's Katina. It's the almsgiving ceremony, but it's the day formally when lay people support the monastery, and particularly they make gifts to support the monastery throughout the year. And the ritual gift that's made is a gift of robe cloth. And so many bolts of fabric were given, absurd amounts of cloth. Here's a, do I have a picture of it that I can show you? I might have in just a moment. Huge amounts of cloth were given, and the tradition is that one monk at the monastery will be designated as the one who's receiving the gift of the robe that year, and they have to be one who is upholds the ethical practices and understands the whole ritual and knows what everything means and knows all the chants. You have to be really a strong member of the community, really doing your work. And so they chose, and the community decides together who that is. And it varies every year, but this year they chose their beloved abbot, Ajahn Pasanno, called Luangpor, Venerable Father or Venerable Elder Pasanno. And this year happened to be the close of his 50th Rains Retreat, so 50 years in robes as a monk. And one of the Sangha members, a Thai woman, wrote a blessing song for in honor of his 50 years in robes, and sang it in this gorgeous kind of traditional Thai style, and then read it out in English. And he was blushing. It was delightful. And okay, here's what it looked like. So you can see all the robe cloth in the front, and this is where they're reading off some of the formal blessings in the middle of the robe giving ceremony. Everything's decorated so beautifully, with so much care. And there's really a tradition that to do things with care and beauty is, is an expression of devotion, and it's an expression of mindfulness. Um, and so the whole space was just gorgeous and packed with people. There was just they were spilling out onto the veranda everywhere, people. So it was really beautiful, a delightful day. And being there, one of the feelings that I have when I'm there, that I think is I mean, it's one of the most delightful feelings that I know in my life, is something like, it's a very particular kind of joy that is like happiness mixed with the sense of safety, mixed with a kind of appreciation or mudita. It's like all together, there's a sense of like, everyone here is kind, everything here is safe, no one is going to harm anyone or take anyone's stuff. There's really a protected atmosphere here. There's so much goodness around. And as a side note, I was just talking with a scholar friend on Facebook, who is doing research on abuse in Buddhist sanghas, and actually we got into the conversation because she was writing about my first teacher, a Zen teacher whose sangha was not safe. And like, I know what it's like to be in a space that doesn't feel like that also. That's also a spiritual space, and which was abusive and gaslighty and all sorts of things. And this space felt so different to me. It feels every time I'm there so different to me, that there's just something trustworthy. This is actually part of the Ajahn Chah tradition, and I feel like I'm going to have to keep putting footnotes on this because I'm going to praise this tradition tonight. There are totally things wrong with this tradition, and there are things to complain about. There are things I could complain about. There's definitely politics. All of that exists. So if you're internally complaining already, just know that I see you. I've got you. The real world is the real world, and I want to talk about a feeling that's important, which is a feeling of faith, and how important that feeling is, even in a flawed world, and flawed communities. So there's a feeling that's a combination of feeling safe, feeling appreciation for the kind of practice and effort that is present there, and one of the things that I feel so clearly in spaces like that I so appreciate is around how you can feel when you're in the presence of people who themselves are committed to goodness, and this is a particular kind of feeling, to be in the presence of what the texts will call, being in the presence of the wise. And so there's this beautiful verse. It's part of a text known as the Maṅgala Sutta, or the Discourse on Blessings. And in this discourse, a deva, a being from the spirit realms, appears late one night. The Buddha is teaching the assembled monastics, and this deva appears and essentially sings a praise song. And in a certain way, this layperson who had this celebratory song for Longpo Pasano's 50th reigns, it felt a little bit like a deva has appeared and is singing a praise song, in front of the Sangha. And this totally happened in the time of the Buddha. Like, here's this being, they appear, and they're singing a song, in verse about how awesome the Buddha is and how beautiful the Dhamma is. And the song, this sutta, the Maṅgala Sutta, is all about various things in the realm of practice, in the realm of the Dharma, that are wonderful blessings. And the very first one is about the people that you spend time with. And it says not to associate with the foolish, but to associate with the wise, to honor those who are worthy of honoring. This is the highest blessing. And there's a whole list of highest blessings, but this is the first one. Don't hang out with fools. Hang out with wise people, and honor that which is worthy of honor, or honor those people who are worthy of honor. That's the highest blessing. And the celebrations at the monastery are, they're steeped in this feeling. The honoring of the Sangha, of the monastic Sangha, is a practice. And it is a practice. Like, you have to learn how to honor them. They're just people, right? So their practices are not perfect. They're not perfect. The politics is not perfect. But there's a way that you can honor people that are giving their lives to the sustaining of the Dharma in the world. And that the very gesture of honoring them is itself a blessing. I love the particular phrasing in this sutta. To honor that which is worthy of honor, that is the highest blessing. It doesn't actually say, those people who are the wise, having them in your life, that's the highest blessing. That's not actually the thing, if we want to get grammatical, that's not the thing that's the highest blessing. Having good teachers, that's the highest blessing. It doesn't say that, actually. What it says is, that there's actions that we can do. It says to associate with the wise and not with the foolish, to honor those worthy of honor, that is the highest blessing. I read this in part that it's the act of honoring that which is worthy of honor that is a blessing. This is really in the same way that when you're practicing dana, which this day was all about dana, right? Giving support, that the practice of dana is not just a transaction that supports the one that you're giving it to. It's good for the monastics if you give them robe cloth and money and things like that. It is. But actually, that the action of giving is the blessing. That's the thing that transforms your heart. This is important almost in a way because of this footnote about the ethical or unethical teachers. It's a blessing to the heart to honor, even if the recipient of your honoring is slightly flawed. And this doesn't give a pass to any of the harmful teachers who need to be criticized and not in positions of power. That whole footnote still stands. But the honoring itself, the giving itself, the act of giving, the act of honoring, the act of respecting something is wholesome, is in and of itself wholesome, and is a delight to the heart. And so, like, you don't bow to there's all of this bowing to the abbot, to Ajahn Pasano. I happen to really love him. I like bowing to him. Other people don't like bowing to an old guy in robes. That's totally fine. Not your jam, no problem. The bowing to the abbot it's supported by the fact that he's a good abbot. But his being a good abbot is a matter of opinion. And you might not like him. You might not appreciate his teachings. You might think that his political choices in relation to various things that are important, you may not agree with. And that's okay, right? But the bowing to the role or to the position You might feel the same way about bowing to the Buddha, for that matter, right? A statue of a dude. Like, some people don't like that kind of practice at all. But the bowing itself is a blessing. And, I love bowing to, in the ritual of being there, some of the teachers there, some of the head monks there, the people who are sometimes in charge there, I like more or less than others. So some of them I'm like, oh, this monk, I don't love his Dharma talk, But the act of doing the bowing brings a kind of delight to my heart. This was really present for me when I had the privilege of being a monk for just one rains retreat, for a short retreat, 22 years ago now. And it was in Burma. And after I was ordained, I got to go out on alms round, as all the monks did. So we're walking barefoot through the streets of Rangoon, collecting rice and food in the alms bowls. And the lay people would dress up in their Sunday best, as it were, their uposattate best, and come out, and they would kneel to get as the monks came by, and they would bow. And I had an experience that is, I've talked to other Westerners who've been in robes over there, and it's quite a common experience. But I initially had the experience of not wanting to receive their veneration, feeling like, you don't get it. I'm just a confused kid from California. I'm not, I have no particular wisdom. I have no particular anything. It's just a quirk of, problematic colonial fate that I'm walking through your streets dressed in this robe right now. You should just ignore me. I'm trying to do my best. Give me 20 years. Like, that was sort of how it felt, right? And it took me a little while, and then I realized that actually that was me being totally self-centered and, immature in my practice, that they weren't bowing to me. They don't know me. They have no idea who I am. They're not even really looking at me, particularly. They're bowing to the line of monks. And the thing that matters is that the line of monks, is composed, calm, walks steadily, doesn't look around, like really observes the rules of monastic decorum. And that when we did this, in other words, when it was a little bit like singing in a choir, where the particular quality or expressiveness of my own voice didn't matter that much. And actually, if I got really big and expressive, it would be detrimental to the song, to the sound of the choir. The thing to do in a choir, of course, is to blend mostly, and to dissolve yourself into the one sound of the chorus. That the right thing for me to do as a monk was actually to blend, was just to walk in step, not stand out, and do the choreography of the alms round, to lift the lid in the right way, and to close it in the right way, to keep my eyes in the right way. And that, this was a discipline. It was hard to learn to do. Choreography has always been hard for me. I was an improvisational dancer, not a choreography kind of dancer. I didn't learn phrases very well. But once I realized that the Burmese lay people, they were bowing to the robes, and more than that, they were bowing even to the sangha, right, to the whole line of monks and supporters. I was able to relax, actually, in being in it. When I'm at the monastery and we're doing some ritual, we're doing some long bit of chanting, the monks are doing some long bit of chanting, or there's something going on. If you focus on any individual monk, you can, of course, but you're just as likely to be disappointed as inspired. One monk off to the side is a little bit sleepy and is nodding off a little bit. Some other monk just looks completely bored. He's just kind of like, kind of doing the thing, but like not like falling over. They're just doing their thing, but it's not like you're seeing a whole row of people who are uniformly passionately engaged. What you're seeing is a whole row of people who are upholding the role of the Sangha, and they're doing their choreography, and they're each in their place. And that in a way, the beauty in it is not to focus on any one person, even on like, my favorite abbot who's there and who I think is totally wise and beautiful. I could focus on him, and at any given moment he's also just like futzing with the microphone and talking with another monk about how they should go get the other microphone from storage so that the such and such. It's like they're just people making making a big event happen. But that the lens that I really appreciate looking at these things with is a lens that zooms out just a little bit and sees that like the Sangha of monks and when there's a mixed Sangha of monks and nuns, that they're all doing the role that is they're wearing the robes in a composed way, and and the flowers are beautiful, and the and the gifts are happening, and there's an invitation in spaces like that to set aside the individual or personal drama that's pushing you through this day or this part of your life, and to rest in a space of the wholesome, and in a space that is in a way a model on the earth of what it might be like to live without dukkha, to live without suffering, right? And this is subtle because of course there's suffering there, right? There's there's the whole layer of individuals and their various problems and the challenges of practice is all there, and all the things you could possibly suffer about are all there. Here's a person I don't really want to talk to, so I'm kind of avoiding them in the crowd, and then my kid is causing a bit too much ruckus, and how much discipline should I step in with? And anyway, there's way too many desserts on the table, and what am I going to do about the kids? And for that, what am I going to do about myself, for that matter? I actually ate a little bit too many different kinds of weird dessert altogether. I am really thrilled that I practice essentially in a Thai cultural monastic setting versus any other, although Zen was actually pretty awesome food-wise as well. But the food at the Thai monasteries is really just, for me, conducive of pleasurable Vedana. So that's nice. But, there's grasping, and then there's the things I like and things I don't. So dukkha is possible anywhere, right? That's the thing with dukkha, is like you can complain anywhere. But the structure of that kind of practice being there, it suggests to the heart that there's a realm of presence that is potentially untroubled and saturated with a certain kind of peacefulness in the heart, that to honor that which is worthy of honor, that the Sangha is worthy of honor, that the Dhamma, these beautiful teachings that have survived for so long. It's year 2567 in the Buddhist calendar, so this is since the Buddha's death. It's 2566 in the Thai calendar and 67 in the Sri Lankan calendar, and that's kind of a bother that there's two different ones and they disagree by 1 year. So it's dukkha. I wish that was more consistent. But 2,567 years since the founder of this tradition passed away, and here's the Sangha doing a thing that he laid down the rules to do. That one monk or nun should be chosen to receive the katina robe for the year. And the rule is that the monks must work together to sew and dye and complete that robe by sunrise the next day, and give it to them. So so there's this big party, a huge gifting party, and then a bunch of monks stay up with a sewing machine all night, very carefully measuring and cutting and sewing this cloth to give it by the opening of the next day to the chosen monk. And they gave it to Ajahn Pasanno this year in honor of 50 years in robes. So that's the first bit. I wanted to just bow to the blessing of being with those who are worthy of honor. So then let's go back to the beginning of this verse then a little bit. Let's talk about fools and wise people a tiny bit here, since that's also in the verse. To not hang out with fools, associate with, I'll say hang out. To not hang out with fools, to hang out with wise people, to honor those worthy of honor. That's the highest blessing. Over and over again in the teachings, the Buddha gives descriptions of practices, descriptions of qualities to invoke in practice, like mindfulness and concentration and joy and equanimity and all the things. So there's what we're doing and there's what we're cultivating, but doing the actions of practice and achieving the results of practice means engaging with the stream of our life. And the stream of our life is composed of various sets of conditions. Conditions is like the raw material in any given moment that you have to work with. And setting up favorable conditions is tremendously helpful if you want to, actually get results. So, let's say the practice you're trying to get results with is like the meditation we were doing today, mindfulness of breathing. You want to really develop some focused attention, and you want to feel the beginning and the middle and the end of the in-breath, the beginning, middle, and end of the out-breath. You want to learn to connect with the whole body, with the kind of subtle somatic hum of the whole body, and feel the whole body breathing, which is a fairly subtle maneuver, yeah? Like, that's quite a meditation. What are some of the conditions that support this, right? It helps to be in a relatively clean, quiet space, right? It's not as easy. Like, it's not that it's impossible to, follow your breathing or feel your whole body breathing when you're, in the middle of a crowded commuter train, or while driving, or while, arguing with your sweetheart, or while, watching the election returns come in on television. Any number of things you might do are unfavorable conditions for certain kinds of practice, right? Some kinds of practice are supported by silence. Other kinds are supported by dialogue. And so setting up the conditions in which you practice is just as important. Maybe I want to say that it's more important than exactly what you practice, because you can't do the actions, the disciplines of practice, if you're in unfavorable conditions. So if you're suffering from food insecurity, you have to get food, before you can settle down to meditate and, calm your mind. And, if you have to deal with your health, you have to deal with your physical safety, you have to deal with relational safety, enough, And so one of the basic conditions that the Buddha talked about over and over and over as being helpful for practice is who you hang out with. And, I'm not going to harangue you to ditch your unwholesome friends, but you might consider, being clear-eyed about the people that you spend time with and what they like to do and how you spend your time together. And the lens is not like, are they, you don't have to use the language of the text, are these people fools or are they wise? Next time you go into a gathering with your friends, look around and be like, fool, 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 wise, wise, don't do that. At least don't do it out loud. But the thing to notice is something like, when I'm with certain people, what's my mind state like? What's the state of my heart like? And that's just a little different lens than like, do I enjoy being with these people? Do they do the same kinds of activities that I like? You might be doing a mutual activity that you all really like, and the activity is even the activity itself is conducive for well-being. It's wholesome activity. But you tune into the people, and the mind state or the state of your heart when you're with them is perhaps not what you want to cultivate. I have friends who are absolutely lovely, delightful friends, but they tend toward like gossip and complaining. And I know this, and so then I have compassion for them. I haven't like ghosted them or anything, but I know that when I'm with them, I have a certain boundary, and there's some things they want to do that I don't want to do. Some ways that they want to talk that I don't want to talk, and often this is not dramatic. It's not like I'm fortunate myself to not be like, oh, here's all of my friends who are, who do like this, who live in a super unhealthy, awful kind of way, but I can't ditch them because, like they're my crew and I just can't drop them. Like, it's not as dramatic as that. But I notice when I'm with people where we share, not necessarily the people with whom I share a faith. I totally have Buddhist friends that, I love that they're Buddhists, but it's a little like meh hanging out with them. But I know the people where when I'm with them, I feel encouraged and supported in my delighting in goodness. And for me, it's a little bit like when I'm with them, my heart, my being in the world just relaxes a bit. There's a bit of softening or relaxing. I can appreciate what I appreciate with these people. Sometimes there's a sense of, I don't need to perform something. I have some friends I totally adore, but I feel like I have to become like wittier and snarkier and more ironic and have pop culture references closer to the tip of my tongue. And I often feel a little bit slow with them, and I'm just like, they're not bad people at all, but I'm like, oh, I'm just not quick enough with references, So it's subtle, but the encouragement here, I think, don't associate with fools, associate with the wise. The encouragement here, a good place to start is with ethical practice. So you look around at your friends, you're like, these friends don't keep the precepts, they are causing harm in various ways, using unwise speech, lying, gossiping, etc. Watch out for that, And then it goes further into, what are the states of mind or states of heart that these folks are encouraging. And the way that this weaves together with kind of this first bit I was talking about around, appreciating goodness, is really that one of the most supportive things we can do in practice is to learn to delight in that which is good. And you can put good in quotation marks because maybe it's a little different for everyone. I'm going to say that there's a good that means supporting well-being, supporting safety, not causing harm as much as we can, doing good work in the world, inspiring work in the world, whatever that is, whatever we can do. but that, I wouldn't want you to come out of a talk like this or a discussion like this thinking, like it would be an error to think that this is, suggesting that we have to be a certain kind of Puritan. Like I have to force myself to, never eat dessert and only hang out with people who watch, Dharma talks and nature documentaries and nothing else. I mean, that's cool, but but if it feels like you're forcing yourself, then that's not the right energy. The energy is that, I realized years ago that I actually prefer watching Dharma talks and nature documentaries to a lot of other things. At one point, we were all over at some friend's house watching a movie, and it was other people had chosen the movie. It was one of the Batman movies. It was one of the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight, I think, kind of movies. I don't know. Anyway, it started with a fight scene, like super intense, dark, and my dear wife was sitting next to me, and it was like the movie was about 2 minutes in, and she leaned over to me and she said, "Hey babe, are you okay? You don't have to watch this." She said, "You're completely shaking," and I closed my eyes and I realized that I was shaking with anxiety. My heart was pounding. I was completely not having fun at all, and I was like, "Oh, this is totally unpleasant." And then I just got up and I left and I went in the kitchen and I did some other things and I let my nervous system settle. And I was like, I don't want to watch this movie. I don't like movies like this. And the thing that I love about being sensitive is that I've actually learned to appreciate wholesome states that tend to be calm and and when they're exciting in in sort of inspiring kinds of ways. I'm open to the occasional action movie and things like that, but I don't actually like being scared or horrified or startled, particularly. And I think that it's a beautiful quality in Dharma practice to not to learn to force ourselves to do things that we think are good for us, but to actually to learn to delight in the states that the teachings suggest are wholesome. And so to delight in the feeling of being with people who help us feel good, to delight in being in the presence of of the wholesome. And this can take some practice, because it can sometimes, we sometimes, I think, have to overcome the habit of going for high stimulation, and even messages that we get that high energy or high intensity things are what we should want to do. And I've totally done some high intensity things. I have some favorite things I like to do, but I've developed over the years a taste for the wholesome, and I think it's just one of the most supportive qualities in my own practice. So I want to encourage reflecting on this teaching on hanging out with the wise. There's an important footnote to that, which is that you have to find them, and with dukkha everywhere, that can be challenging, but they're out there, and you can do it, and it's a good step, coming to wholesome places like sanghas where there's good people practicing. So learning to delight in the wholesome, learning to delight in people who inspire goodness, who support the sense of safety, and to honor those beings who are worthy of honor. That is the highest blessing. All right, so pausing there. It's a blessing to come here and hang out with you all and be in the conversations that we're in. We have a little time for any reflections on practice, and a Dharma elf has told me that it might be someone's birthday here, but I'm not going to out them unless they admit it themselves. So, all right, I'll take that as an admission. Caitlin, I'm told it's your birthday, and so I have so much blessing for you, and whatever good fortune may come your way this year, may it be abundant and inspiring and profound. So I'm so glad you're part of the Sangha. It's great to have you here. Nicole, please.
Sorry, I raised my hand before the birthday announcement, so
this right.
Is not in the same vein. And if this isn't an appropriate question or you don't feel comfortable answering, that's totally fine. But I'm curious if you could share anything that you know about Abhayagiri's gender politics and the relationship between Abhayagiri and Alokavihara. And I've heard complex things, and it's interesting to hold that in the context of
absolutely
what you're sharing about.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of you will know some of the backstory that Nicole's question alludes to. Abhayagiri is part of the Ajahn Chah lineage, which is called the Forest Sangha, which is headquartered in Thailand. And when that lineage came to Europe and North America in the early 1970s and into the 80s, it was allowed to create a women's order that was new, so that wasn't exactly the same as the women's order that exists in Thailand. It was a new order called the Siladhara order. It was an order essentially of 10 precept nuns. And this was a compromise because in Thailand, as with all of the traditional Theravadan countries, primarily Sri Lanka, Burma, Thailand, and Laos, and Cambodia, the lineage of fully ordained women, the Bhikkhuni lineage, had ended about 1,000 years ago. For various reasons, patriarchy among them, had not been restored. The process of restoring it is complicated in a legal sense. It's not complicated spiritually, but it was complicated in a legal sense, and there's been resistance to restoring it from the monastic authorities in all of the Theravadan countries, and that's been true in Thailand. And so the Western lineage, there are a lot of people in the Western monastic lineage, in the monks lineage, who very much support the restoring of the Bhikkhuni Sangha, and there are some in the Western lineage that do not. Some of those voices against call upon post-colonial attitudes of respect for the Thai monastic elders and not wanting to bring Western feminist pressure to bear upon a system that we only joined 50 years ago after we bombed the shit out of their country. So there's some tenderness there. That's the best argument that I've ever heard for going slow. But there's been a long conversation about how to restore the Bhikkhuni order, and history moved ahead without the Ajahn Chah order. So the Ajahn Chah lineage has remained resistant to restoring the Bhikkhuni order. And the conditions for the 10 precept nuns in the Ajahn Chah lineage have been deplorable. And so many of them have left. The Siladhara order continues but isn't very sustainable at the moment. Many of them left and were reordained as bhikkhunis in the Bhikkhuni lineage that was restored, which was through the relatively much more open Sri Lankan lineage. And it was restored with the help of Korean and Taiwanese Mahayana nuns who had maintained a connection to the original lineage and maintained the Vinaya. And many scholars, including folks that I think are correct, read the legal standing to say that you don't even need that to restore the women's lineage, but that it would be possible to restore at any time. So there continues to be a tension between the monasteries in the Ajahn Chah lineage who formally do not recognize the Bhikkhuni lineage, and the evolution of the Sangha itself, in which there are many monks who do recognize them. A couple of monks from Abhayagiri and from the Ajahn Chah lineage have recently started a new center up in northern Washington, specifically not as an Ajahn Chah monastery, for the sole reason that they want to be able to attend and support Bhikkhuni ordinations. That's the Clear Mountain monks, Ajahns Kovalo and Nisabo, and they're doing beautiful work up there. So it's an ongoing painful issue, and I am, one among the Abhayagiri and Ajahn Chah lineage supporters who, like many of us, we really have a prayer that the next generation of monastic leadership finds the courage and legal pathway to change the politics of the lineage in the West, and to change the rules around the Siladhara order so that women can become fully ordained bhikkhunis in the Ajahn Chah lineage, rather than leaving the lineage to do so. So that's behind the relationship between Abhayagiri, which is formally an Ajahn Chah center, and Aloka Vihara, which is the nuns' center here in California, that formally isn't, but the nuns that founded it were students of Ajahn Chah's and students of the lineage, and maintain a very close relationship with the lineage, even though their path was to unordain and reordain as bhikkhunis in the other lineage. So it's a source of pain. It's absolutely the thing I was referring to in the footnote around nothing being perfect and there being dukkha, and that it's part of practice. It's at least been part of my practice to try to understand as much as possible about the very real political complications and the issues present, and to totally be willing to have an opinion about it and not skirt the issue, and at the same time to continue to be devotional and honoring and part of the lineage. I don't want to leave the lineage because I disagree with how the monastic authority is deciding this. So that's a choice that everyone has to make, but it is the most annoying sticking point in this lineage at this moment, and I'm hopeful that in our lifetimes it will change. So there's some dukkha as a bit of context. Yeah, totally. Yeah, any other thoughts? We're a few minutes past our time. As always, I'm happy to stick around for a couple minutes with this. Ava, please.
I have a question, but it might be too big of a question for this.
Come on. Let's hear it.
When you were mentioning, avoiding watching movies with violence, or that seems relatively easy. What's not easy right now is avoiding what's happening in the world and how horrific it is, and the descriptions and the images. And I haven't found a way, and I'd love it for you to speak to this, to feel like I'm doing what I need to do to know what's happening, to be informed, to be witness.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, to not be, um, like watching horror movies all the time.
That's right. That's
Because
right.
it can start to feel like that, and how to find that, um, I don't know, some kind of balance or some kind of wisdom within that.
Yeah. It's hard. So first, just a bow to that. Um, yeah, right on. Blessings, Matthew. Blessings, Lorraine. Yeah. It's challenging. A couple of suggestions. One is that visual images are really different than descriptions. And so, if visual imagery really sticks in your heart mind and is difficult to process, then taking in news through radio and audio sources can be better. Going slow, so not taking things in in the middle of the social media feed, but being intentional with our time. Like now I will open a source of reputable, clear-headed news, and I will read it for a half an hour soberly, and and maybe if when I come to that story, the story that really describes the suffering, I could choose to read it or not. Like you don't have to click it open. There's suffering. You don't actually need to read the personal stories perhaps today. Maybe this is a day when it's appropriate to do so, maybe it's not. And on the days when it's appropriate to do so, and you've done it intentionally, say, now I'm going to read this, I'm going to take in what's happening. Slowing down, read one article and then close the computer and sit and just let it land, It's terrible seeing an image of someone, carrying the body of someone they love, of a child. Those images are in the news right now. Don't scroll fast past that, because the image hits your heart, and then you're scrolling, and then somebody's talking about their cat, and somebody's trying to get you to buy their online course, and it's like, it's cognitively really destabilizing. So you come across that image, whether intentionally or unintentionally, and it hits the heart. Let it process. So close the computer, sit down, lie down, go outside, bring the image to mind intentionally, and be like, okay, I didn't want to see this today, but this is what I'm seeing. And here, I'm about to cry because I'm seeing an image that I saw earlier today. It's like, okay, I saw that image today. So all right, so I'm stopping. May that family be well. You send metta, you send compassion. What are you going to do? I think the thing to do is to not lose our humanity in an onslaught of disembodied information from far away. So, maybe it's like we have these extraordinary tools of media, and they've given us a window. They've given me a window into this family who just lost someone they love, 20,000 miles away on the other side of the planet. The least I can do is stop what I'm doing and hold them in my heart for a moment, And it's not just that it's respectful for them. This is really the same answer as the answer about bowing to the monastics. It's not that it's respectful to them or does something for them or saves their child in any way, but it does something for our own heart to say, for my heart, the wholesome thing to do in this moment is to pause and to be with this. And I really only have one of those in me a day, myself anyway. So then it's like, all right, I know what's happening in the war. I know enough. Turn it off. Go light a candle, sit, walk, pray, make offerings. you don't need more information. So that's what I do anyway, or try to. Yeah, blessings. Yeah. Great. All right, Nicole just posted in the chat the refuge circles. It's actually just beautiful what they're doing, gathering together in prayer and reflection and practice, and then taking action. So yeah, beautiful work that's happening. So Buddhist Peace Fellowship is doing that. There's several sanghas doing that kind of thing. So so check them out. Come together in that way. All right. So I am heading on to retreat this coming week. So next Tuesday, Anna will help host a young friend of mine, a young teacher named North Byrne, who runs an independent 3-month retreat. It's really just a bunch of hippies camping in the woods, but doing beautiful practice, beautiful meditation practice. And they're doing it in Northern California this year. They've done it up in the Pacific Northwest a couple times. He was a longtime resident at Dharmakiri, Kittisaro and Tanisara's place in South Africa. And so an interesting young person. He wanted to come in and talk about the retreat next year and a little bit about long practice. So he's going to come and be the guest next week, next Tuesday while I'm on retreat. And then I will see you back the week following, which is whatever it is, the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. And we'll swing back into our exploration of the Anapanasati Sutta and breathing practice, and we'll move into the third tetrad, which is the place where the instructions start to veer toward insight. So that'll be fun. All right, so blessings to everyone for a beautiful week next week and for a lovely Thanksgiving holiday, however you celebrate or protest or both that holiday, or ignore if you're not, North American. Do your thing. And just big love to you all, and to hang out with a good Sangha. It's the highest blessing. So thank you so much. See you soon.